reactions to the developments in the Oval Office?
Well, let's start with why is Ramaphosa there and why these specific dates. I mean, he initiated the trip. Let's inform South Africans, and he chose these 3 dates. Firstly, as you're aware, yesterday on Monday was the Phala case, first day of the Phala case in court. He was absent. Today we had the budget vote. He was absent. So it's clear that Ramaphosa had no interest whatsoever in upholding his constitutional and presidential responsibilities to South Africans, but instead he decided to choose these specific dates, knowing very well that they would coincide with the Phala case as well as the budget.
So according to you, was he required to be in court for the case?
If President Zuma can attend a court case, and if President Mandela could attend a court case in 1996 pertaining to the issue of the Springboks as brought by Louis Late, why can't Ramaphosa?
You don't
Ramaphosa
think that
is not
maybe
above the law.
You don't
he should have also been in court.
Do you think
this
that
was
maybe
a crime scene on his farm?
Pardon me, Nhlamulo, do you think that maybe when the time comes, because that question did come up, if one of our reporters, in fact, Pimani Baloyi, did ask the NPA there in Limpopo to say that are we going to see the president at some point coming into this particular matter? Of course, non-committal, but saying that when the time comes, everybody that is involved in this particular matter will come. So do you trust that maybe at that time when he needs to be in court, he will be?
Ramaphosa should have been in court from the initial court case and the court date. Now, as to whether he will be in court is a different story. Hello?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Yes. Now, as to whether he'll be in court is a different story. I mean, we can never trust anything that Ramaphosa says. But I think there's something that's important that we need to raise here. Ramaphosa, the crime that he created on his farm was dollar-based. Now, there's a law in the U.S., by the way, called FCPA, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, that refers to if there is any criminality pertaining to any transactions of undeclared money, in this case in the form of dollars, then that is a criminal offense that the FBI should be investigating. What you have there sitting next to Donald Trump is a fugitive from justice. What should be happening is that they should be prosecuting him and asking him to actually respond as to how was he found with all those dollars in his couch, and also then account according to the international law of the US, which is the FCPA. This is what should be happening here, because they are sitting with a person who has caused criminality, and that farm of his is a crime scene. So this act of so-called diplomacy is not diplomacy. It is more so an act of subservience of a black man who is gone to his bosses, his white imperial bosses, to go and ask for some sort of assistance and intervention.
So, Nhlamulo, just before we get into another matter, this particular FCPA that you speak about, its amendment in 1998, it said that it applies to foreign firms and persons who either directly or through intermediaries help facilitate or carry out corrupt payments in the U.S. territory.
No, it's not necessarily in the U.S. territory. If you go further and you read that, you realize that any transaction that is either fraudulent or corrupt in of its form, even outside of the U.S., the FBI has got a jurisdiction to actually investigate that case.
Mm-hmm. So when you then look at the development itself, I know that you speak about the Phala matter, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts, because one of the things that was played as part of the evidence by Donald Trump to substantiate his, of course, the claims that he's been making of a genocide. We heard the now leader of the MK party, Jacob Zuma, singing a struggle song, which was also used as one of those moments and evidence, and I'm putting it in inverted commas, by Donald Trump to these claims that are unsubstantiated of this particular genocide. What was your reaction just on that particular clip that has been played?
I mean, those are just desperate acts by individuals who, more than anything else, their agenda is to try and keep the status quo in the country, where only the minority continue to benefit, and they believe and think that we're going to erase our history, which has actually brought us into the situation that we are. If there was any genocide that should be referred to, it's apartheid. Now, what is happening today, when they refer to farm killings. You know, the sad thing about it is that you'll never hear anyone in the Western Cape, including Johan Rupert himself, lifting his hand when a child, a black child, is, a farmer drives over a black child for taking an orange on his farm on the ground. And you'll never hear Johan Rupert raise his finger or his hand and intervene when a 76-year-old woman is mauled by pit bulls on a racist white farmer's farm. You don't hear them say any of that. And all of this is happening on the Western Cape on farms. So, for them to now try and bring a narrative and try and justify and saying that they are keeping out, the problem is that what you have is that you have a bought ANC leadership, and the people that you saw there are in effect the perpetrators, we should actually call them that facilitated the payments of the CR17 campaign in 2017. So for the first time now, we've actually gotten to see the individuals who are actually behind this so-called GNU, which is a coalition of convenience with the likes of Steenhuisen, and not in the interest of serving South Africans. So this is what the situation is at play here. And we mentioned it as MK right from the beginning. I remember from day one, when I presided over the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies, I said to Soli Malati, I said to him, can you tell me, I don't understand why the president would even make you the Minister of Communications in the first place. Because all you and the party that you represent do in all instances is you go and you default to the US for them to interfere in local and domestic matters and issues. And this is exactly what's happening here. And I said to him, not only that, you preside over the State Information Technology Agency. Now, from a security perspective, all technological platforms in government sit and reside there, and you have to oversee that when you are the same minister and the same party that actually defaults to the US for those kind of interventions. This, again, is just more than anything else a transaction. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with genocide. It is just a transaction where Ramaphosa is securing a buck for himself and his cronies.
I don't want you to move away from the Democratic Alliance because, of course, he said it in his capacity as the Minister of Agriculture, and that is John Steenhuisen. He says, and I'm going to quote some of what he said that I joined the GNU to keep those people, referring to yourselves and the EFF, out of power. We cannot have them join government. We decided to keep that lot, as he said it, out of government because the day they come into the union buildings, that is exactly what you'll see.
Since when, if you look at our policy, we're very clear what we need to do. Since when is free education a crime? Since when is beneficiation of our minerals for our people a crime? Because that's what we stand for. So getting into government, and since when is requesting that we nationalize our reserve bank that is currently owned by foreigners a crime? Why should it be a crime? Since when is ending alleviating poverty and creating jobs a crime? Since when is stimulating and ensuring infrastructure investment that will also then increase productivity and create jobs a crime? So if that is a crime, then quite honestly, he's in the wrong country.
So what happens now, especially because there are still quite a number of South Africans who are wondering, is there going to be a deal? Is there not going to be a deal? But at the same time, an important trading partner the U.S. is when it comes to, South Africa. You listen to, of course, Kosatu speak about the jobs, but you also then look at the fact that right now, foreign direct investment is crucial when it comes to South Africa's story. And the team that is there from South Africa, led by the president, is hoping to reset what this particular relationship with the U.S. What does that resetting look like? Let's say if the MK party would have been in government.
Well, we can't speculate on whether would be how would actually react if we're in
government. But if you were in
Reflect.
government right now, how would this resetting look like?
We wouldn't find ourselves in a situation where we're having to reset in the first place. That's the point. Because we are thinkers within MK and would have handled this issue through the proper diplomatic channels and within the framework of diplomacy, which would have actually ensured that we quell any perception that would have been created, that in this case is negative and has impacted our country negatively so by a bunch of racist sideliners that has led us to sit in a situation where now the country is compromised and we find ourselves in relations with the US, which have been scuppered by virtue of those acts. So we would have ensured that we don't find ourselves in this situation in the first place. We would have acted accordingly and acted within the diplomatic channels.
Before I let you go, the motion of no confidence against the president, as you've put in your statement, when does it come?
Well, firstly, we must say that this budget was as absent as the president. And what we expect is that when he lands and actually submits his letter of resignation, because this cannot continue. South Africa needs to advance. South Africa is not a banana republic. We need a government that will advance the will of the people, and we need to ensure that we cannot, in this case, continue with a president who sees his role and thinks that running government is a side hustle.
So, Nkamulo, just before I let you go, there's a tweet by the Secretary General of the ANC, that is Fikile Mbalula, and he says, well done to Team South Africa for representing our country and putting the record straight, led by our President Cyril Ramaphosa. They disagree with the fact that you say it was not a strong showing?
Oh, well, that's another short-sighted sideshow. Because he himself, I'm sure, does not even understand what Expropriation Act actually means. So they couldn't even articulate and position the policy posture and government posture pertaining to the Expropriation Act, let alone the Bella Bill, to quell some of the perception that's been created. So what well done